Have you ever gotten lost?
Or lost something?
Or lost someone?
We're going to tell you about a time when we did all three in a week.
1 week.
Hello and welcome to Around the World with Joshua and Alyssa. It's week 8 and we're excited to be with you again. Thank you for watching. It's good to see you even though we can't really see you, but we're glad you're here. So we're going to get right into it. We've been talking about Ecuador for the last 2 weeks. We talked about what the climate is like there, what the weather is like, the temperature, and we also talked about the markets. And we showed you some pictures from there. Today we're going to share with you some adventures we had while we were in Ecuador. So this is a little different than normal, but I think you'll still enjoy it, hopefully. So, to start off, the main reason we were down there, you can go ahead and switch it. The main reason we were down in Ecuador was to do some video and pictures for different missionaries. And I brought my drone with me, and I was going to use this to get some video, and I did. You can see it right there on the left side of the screen on the ground. And anyway, we were staying at a place that had next to it a very deep gorge, and a gorge is kind of like a valley, but it has cliffs on both sides. That's a good way to explain it. And a river running through it. And this gorge was carved out by some hot lava from one of the volcanoes many years ago. And now there's just this little tiny river that flows through it and is just filled with all these plants that you see. And you can go down in the gorge. There's a trail that goes down there. Here's a picture of the trail that we took down the side to get in. That's really the only good way to get down in there. Everything else is too dangerous. You don't just try to climb down the sides into this thing.
No, you shouldn't.
Yeah, so we went down the trail and this is what it looked like. Well, anyway, there was one morning I woke up and I thought it would be great to get a video with my drone coming out of the gorge. Not of me coming out of the gorge, but just this video of you see this gorge and all these plants and this water, and then all of a sudden you're out of it and you see the buildings. And so I thought that'd be fun. So I flew it down in there, and unfortunately I lost my signal with it, and it stayed down in there. It just lowered itself onto a tree and didn't come back up. So that was pretty scary. So I decided I was going to go and rescue it. So I went down the trail. I didn't just climb down the sides. I went down the trail safely into the gorge, and I started walking along the little river, and eventually there was like a little waterfall, and I had to kind of hop down over that and keep going, and then just kept getting more and more unsafe, I guess. Hard to get to the places where I needed to go. And so I kept going, and finally I just could not go any farther. I was like, this is too dangerous. I cannot go down this next bank, and I'm just going to have to consider it a lost $600 or whatever. So I climbed up the side of the gorge, which was kind of scary because it was almost straight up. Not quite, but pretty close. And thankfully, I'm not afraid of heights or climbing. But it was still not the same as climbing with the right equipment attached to you. And I finally made it out. Unfortunately, I got to the top and I looked, and I'd only made it to the spot where the trail started. I didn't even make any progress. I went down and then came back and then climbed up and was in the exact same spot. So anyway, I went back and I was all dirty and scratched up by some thorny plants.
He was a mess.
Yeah, it was not good. Unfortunately, I don't have pictures of that. Maybe that's better. But anyway, kids, if you have something very expensive from your parents or you got it yourself or whatever, don't put it in places where you might not get it, especially near cliffs and water and streets, things like that. Just stay away from that. And if you decide to go somewhere, you should tell somebody where you're going just in case something happens to you, or maybe they can go with you. Whatever it is, just be careful because some things might seem okay and you don't want to lose something really nice, but it could be very dangerous. So that's the lesson from there.
That's when you lost something.
That was the time I lost my drone. Oh, I did get it back, thankfully. Some other people from who live there, later in the week, they went down into the gorge. They found it. They brought it back out for me. It was all wet, and it did work again later. It dried all out, and it flew. I still use it sometimes. So
Impressive.
It had a happy ending, thankfully. Now, here is a picture of a volcano that we showed you once. And we were at a camp and we were going to climb up a mountain. And this is a picture I took from the top of that mountain. We didn't climb up that volcano, but we climbed up another mountain. And we were told that we were going to climb to this like big metal cross. It was like a radio tower or something, but it was shaped like a cross on a mountain. And we were told that we were going to climb to there. Well, we started climbing. It was walking, it was a nice path actually. You can see it in this picture. It was nice and fairly smooth, not real rocky, but it was going uphill the whole time, and so it was a lot of work still, and it was really hot. Started off cool, got really hot. And about halfway up, part of our group, they turned around because it was just getting too much for them. It was like a 3-hour hike.
Yeah.
I think, and it only took like an hour to get back down, but getting up took a while.
I think it was up in the elevation too, because I felt like it was getting harder and harder to breathe.
Yeah. And here we are. We finally did get to the top, but we got to the top and the cross was not there. In fact, as we're climbing, we're looking over at the cross on this other mountain. We're thinking, it's going to take us a really long time to get there, and it doesn't look like we're getting any closer. And we were not. We climbed up the wrong mountain. Our guide had told us that's where we were climbing, but I don't know what happened. I really don't know. We just did not get there. And the lesson there, I think, a good sermon illustration is there are a lot of people in life who are trying to get to Jesus, or they're trying to get to heaven. They're trying to find the cross. And they're working hard, they're trying to do the right things, and they are going up the wrong mountain. And they're not going to get to the right place. And so for you, there is only one way to get to Jesus. And there's a lot of other ways that people will say you can get to him. But if you're climbing those other ways, if you're taking the wrong path, you're never going to get to the right place. So, remember, there's only one way to get to Jesus. The Bible tells us what that is. And that's something we were reminded of as we climbed up this mountain and kind of thought we were lost, but we just weren't getting to what we thought we were. It was a different path. And the last story, when one of us got lost. Not really, but
the rest of the group
thought so. So in Ecuador, there are a lot of church buildings, beautiful church buildings like this one you see with the domes, those light blue domes. And here's inside some different churches. They're so beautiful, and there's a lot of them, all these Catholic churches, because of the Spanish influence in Ecuador. And there was one town where we went and visited, well actually we visited them in Quito and Cuenca. And in Cuenca, we saw different things for a day. And at one point, we decided to go and get some ice cream for like the third time that week because it was really good. And while we were in there, suddenly the guys came out and they said, "Josh, where's Alyssa?" I said, "I don't know. I'm just taking pictures." And she was just taking pictures. I'm not supposed to be following her around. And she knows what she's doing, I'm sure. But I guess they thought that it was my responsibility and not theirs to be watching her. And so we started looking around for her. They were really concerned. I wasn't. I was just kind of looking around knowing that she was safe somewhere. And she was just in the church building next door. She saw that she could go in for free, and so she went in and she took pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And then she walked back out. And she's like,
Hi.
And then we went and got our ice cream. But that was the time Alyssa got lost, but not really.
But I wasn't really
Just
lost.
thought she was. So all these stories of losing something or getting lost, thankfully they all had good endings.
And thankfully we got ice cream in the end.
And we did get ice cream in the end. This is not the ice cream from that day, but this is some yummy ice cream that we had. And I think mango and maybe passion fruit. That's probably what it was. So anyway, those are some adventures we had in Ecuador. Hopefully you enjoyed those. And next week we're going to tell you about another country. And so that was Ecuador. And now Alyssa is going to continue her missionary story that is also in Ecuador.
Yep.
So
Trying to keep it all tied together.
all right, go ahead.
Okay. Well, we'll get back to our story today. We finished off the end of our story last time with Nate's sister Rachel, who came to visit them, and we were remembering how she was trying to learn languages and how she wanted to translate the Bible into other languages for people. And when she heard about Nate and how much he wanted to help the Auca people, she wanted to help write a Bible or translate a Bible in their language. So we ended last time by wondering, how is she ever going to learn the Auca language? Because remember, if they go into the village, all the people will probably attack them. And there's no way to learn their language, except we do know somebody who left the villages and who was living outside of them. And that was, do you remember? Dayuma. Remember, she had left because some warriors had come to attack her village? Well, now she was living with a rich plantation owner, and he grew a lot of bananas. And so she helped pick the bananas and help take care of them. And she worked for him, and she learned the language of the people around her. And so she had forgotten some of her Auca words, but a lot of them were still in her mind, and there still was a lot of fear for her. And also the desire to go back and hurt people again, because that's just what she was used to. Well, Rachel learned about Dayuma, and she met her, and she asked if Dayuma would help her learn the language so that Rachel could put the Bible into the language of the Auca people. And Dayuma said yes. Now, it took a little bit for some of those words to come back and for her to be able to remember them, but little by little, she was able to teach Rachel some of the words. Now, it's really hard to learn a language if you don't know any of the words or the sounds or anything. And they didn't speak the same language to begin with either. So it was a lot of actions, a lot of motions, a lot of acting things out. For example, when Dayuma wanted to explain what it meant to cry for Rachel, she had to she curled up on the ground and pretended to be like a baby and like rubbed her eyes like she was crying so Rachel could get the idea, oh, this is the word to cry. So let me give you an example. I'm going to say a word that's an Auca word, and I'm going to act it out and see if you can figure out what the word was, just like Dayuma and Rachel were doing. So here's the first one. Iwa. Now, do you have any idea what that is? Iwa? I have nothing coming to my mind. So then Dayuma could act it out, and then it would make sense to Rachel. So if I say Iwa, and I do this, ooh, ah, like I'm eating a banana, what could that be? If you guess monkey, you're right. Just like Dayuma really liked to eat a certain kind of monkey with her people, back from the beginning of our story. So she taught Rachel that word, Iwa. She also taught her another word, Nemo. And then she pointed up to the sky like this, Nemo. Be something in the dark that you would see in the sky. Nemo, what do you think it is? If you said stars, you got the right answer. So that's how they worked on learning the language. And little by little, Rachel began to write down these words, and they began to collect the words written down for the Auca people. And Dayuma thought it was really amazing that Rachel could put her words onto paper and they could mean something. She also thought it was really cool when Rachel got letters. Because Nate was always flying his airplane around, he could help deliver mail to places, and Rachel would get letters from friends and family back in the States, and she could read them. Dayuma thought that was so neat, and Rachel explained to her, I want to learn your words because I want to be able to write God's message to you about how much he loves you. was a really great idea to Dayuma, that God loved her and God had a special message for her, and so she worked really hard to help Rachel learn the words from her language. And look how God made it all work together. How much Nate loved to fly, and how much Rachel loved to learn languages, and even how Dayuma had left her people and had come out. Well, Nate kept going with his job. He still kept praying for the Auca people who really cared about them and wanted to be able to connect with them some way. Well, one day he was flying his airplane and a man came by. He said, "Wait, there's some people who are hurt. Some Aucas came out of the jungle and they attacked 2 men with spears and you need to take them to the hospital right away." Sometimes his airplane even became an ambulance. So he helped the men and he brought them into his airplane and tied them down so that they would be safe for the flight. And as they were flying over to the hospital, the men in the back of his plane were angry. They were so upset that these Aucas had come out and attacked them. They said, "We'll give you money, Nate, if you'll fly your airplane back to that area and shoot those Auca people." Nate said, "I'm not going to do that. I don't want to kill them. I want to love them and I want to show them how they can have a better life in Jesus. I'm not going to do that." But you see, even the people around him, a lot of them didn't like the Auca people because they were always attacking and hurting each other. But Nate had a lot of love for them. And what's really cool is he's not the only one who loved the Auca people. We know God did, but there are also some other missionaries. So we have a whole group of missionaries here, and we'll just look at one at a time. So we'll pull back like the little window to look at them. So we'll pretend like we get to go visit each one of the missionaries. Sometimes Nate would bring medical supplies in his airplane. And he could bring medical supplies to missionaries who needed to help people who were sick. Sometimes he would bring supplies to Roger and to Roger's family. And he would bring them for his family if they were sick, or they could share it with other people nearby. There's a story of how Roger went to a village and he got there and he met the chief, and the chief did not like him. He did not want Roger to be there. He really wanted Roger to die. But a day later, the chief got really, really sick. Thankfully, Roger had some medicine and he offered to help the chief, even though the chief hadn't liked him. And then the chief got better, and Roger was able to go and tell those people about Jesus. Well, Roger and his wife had also heard about the Auca people, and their hearts hurt for these people that nobody else loved. But they wanted to love them, and they were praying that God would give them an opportunity to help these people. Well, Nate would also use his airplane to bring food to people that lived in the jungles. They couldn't just run over to the grocery store and buy some things. They didn't have a grocery store. Sometimes the journey would take a long time for them to go get food. So he would bring it to some of his missionary friends, like Jim and Betty. And Jim and Betty, he would love to deliver food to them because he liked to stay, maybe have lunch with them and just talk about the things that they were doing and the people that they got to minister to. And sometimes they would talk about the Auca people too. And they wanted to see that the Auca people could be cared for and that they would have exactly what they needed. And sometimes Nate would use his airplane to help bring supplies like tools. One of his friends, one of the other missionaries in Ecuador that he was pretty close to, was Ed. And Ed and his wife did a lot of building. Ed liked to build houses and fix projects, and he actually built his house kind of somewhat close by where he thought maybe some of the Auca people lived. And Nate and Ed came up with this cool plan where they put this little contraption with a light on the outside and a loud alarm that would sound if somebody got too close to their house at night, just to kind of scare people away, and it would keep his family safe. They also were interested in the Auca people, which is why he built his house kind of close by. He wanted to learn about them, or maybe to see them, just to see who they were. And sometimes Nate would also bring medical supplies. Like here's a stethoscope, maybe a cot. We know parts of the story where he's helped take people like earlier in the story, like an ambulance. Well, this is his friend Pete, who kind of helped out people like a doctor. And so he could fly people over to see Pete, or he could take people to another village or to a place that had a better hospital. And all of these people they had different things that they liked to do, and they worked really hard to help the people around them. And they all had something in common. They all really wanted to help the Auca people who nobody really cared about, and these people that really needed to hear about Jesus. Well, they all got together and they started praying, and they decided to call themselves and their group Operation Auca, just like the name of our story. Well, to be able to help the Auca people, they first had to find them. and they had ideas of where they might be. So they flew Nate's plane around, and they were looking and looking in the jungle, trying to see if they could see some little spot that looked like a village, maybe where the Auca people were. And Nate and Ed would go up in the plane, and they'd look and they'd look, and they'd come back, and having seen nothing, they kept praying, God, please help us find them so we at least can try to watch them or try to connect with them some way or use some of the words Dayuma's teaching us. Well, the very last time they're flying out, and right at the end of their trip, they're almost out of fuel, and they saw an Auca settlement pretty close to a river. They thought, that's perfect. This one's not too far from us. We finally found them. And they went back, and they were so excited. They were praising and thanking God for helping them find their very first village. And they began to pray and to come up with ideas. How are they going to connect with the people? They thought, maybe we can use some words. Maybe we can bring them something. How can we let them know that we're friends? Well, you're going to have to come back next time to see. Are they going to be able to connect with the people? Is Dayuma going to help them learn some more words? Are they ever going to get to tell these people about Jesus and have a Bible in their language? You just have to come back next week and find out. But now you know why our story is called Operation Auca, for the missionaries.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, while I was gone, I thought of something. We have something new this week somewhere in your view of where we're sitting that is new.
Yep.
And if you have already seen it, comment below. If you have not seen it yet, I think you'll be able to find it. Look for it. Last week it was a soccer ball.
Good job.
And we know some of you found it. The week before, the llama. Cute little llama.
Oh,
still there.
So cute.
So, keep looking. But now we are going to go and learn about some more friends of ours.
Yeah. Got some missionary friends today to talk about.
Yep. So, these are some people that I know kind of from school because I know their kids and I've met them, but Alyssa actually got to basically live with them.
Kind of.
So,
we're going to talk about Jim and Becky Carlton, and they live in Peru. And I got to know them really well when I was on Arriba, which is an 11-month trip to Peru. If you ever want to know about a great way to learn about missions, just leave a comment below and I'll tell you all the fun stuff about Peru. But they're kind of like the leaders, like the mom and dad for everybody of the group. So this is Pastor Jim and his wife Becky. And they live in Lima, Peru, which is the capital. So let's go ahead and look back at our map so we can know where we're talking about here for Peru. So we live in Minnesota. We decided that's kind of over here in this general area. Peru is in South America, so South America. Over here on the coast. It's kind of it's not super long, but kind of takes up a good chunk of the coast. And Lima is right on the coast of South America. So Pastor Jim and Becky lived there, and they were like kind of like our stand-in mom and dad, our leaders for us while we were in Peru. And we all lived with different families, but this is our whole group. So you can see on the far left, the guy with the cross on his shirt, that's JR. We talked about him.
He's just a little guy in that picture.
We talked about him a few weeks ago. And then my friend Lydia, who is my roommate, she's on the right in the back with the red shirt. And then the other friends were also part of my group. And Pastor Jim and Becky live in Lima. The capital city has a population of about 10 million people. That's a lot of people. And about 1/3 of the population of Peru lives right in the city of Lima. They live on the east side of town. So this is like the fancy district where like all the rich people live and all the money is.
So this is where they live?
No.
Oh.
They live on the other side of town, about where the Andes Mountains start, and it's considered La Molina. So this is a lot more normal looking for the rest of Peru. Unless you go to the jungle, that's a different look altogether. But just lots of dusty mountains and lots of little houses kind of all put together. This looks a lot like the area over by their church. So we asked them how they're involved and how they're doing ministry in their area. And they are at the church, Iglesia Bautista del Manantial, and they reach out to their community a lot by having kids clubs on Saturday afternoons. And Bible school is also a really big deal to them. They do Bible school in February, and one of the reasons that they do that is to bring children and their parents into church. So they'll do games, have snacks. Always a good idea.
You loved that part.
Oh, I do love snacks. And do lots of fun activities with the kids. And a lot of them will just come out and hang out for the day and for the afternoon. I got to help when they did a VBS at their church when I was down there. They've also done medical campaigns. So they'll bring in different people to do like dental work or to help people who have different medical needs, and they'll just do it for free. And that kind of is a way to reach out to the people in their community. This is kind of an interesting picture. You can see Becky is right in the middle, but a lot of the Peruvian people, they're a lot smaller than Americans are, which is kind of fun. I felt really tall when I was down there, and I'm not that tall in the States. So we asked them what's something that's kind of interesting about Peru, and they said the food. Oh, always love a good market picture. Look at all those bananas. Yum. And oranges. And papaya.
And platanos.
Yeah, I see some on the end. So, you can have rice if you go to Peru. Lots of rice, at least twice a day. My host dad, when I lived in Peru, said it wasn't a meal without rice. But we didn't really have it for breakfast all that much.
Sad.
Yeah. Chicken is the most popular meat, and they just add that to whatever potato dish or other side things they're having. This is kind of an interesting thing. This is a specific kind of food, pachacamak, where they take the food and they mix it all together and then they bury it in this hole with all these bricks around it, and it kind of cooks underground. And then they dig it up after it's been in there for so many hours or overnight and eat it. So it's a very traditional thing to do. They also have a greeting in Peru that's a little bit different than here. You don't just stick your hand out and shake your hand to somebody else or like do a little bow like you would in Japan. They have another specific greeting where you do like a kiss on the side of the other person's cheek. So I'll show you. If I was walking into a room and I was greeting everybody and saying hello, I'd say good morning or good afternoon, and then I'd reach over and I would just kiss on the side of their cheek like that. It's just normal. Maybe it seems weird, but it's normal.
Don't try that at home, kids.
But if you're in Peru, now you know how to greet somebody. You're welcome. Okay, so let's go back to the food. How about this? Do you want this for lunch today?
No. It kind of looks like pizza dough, but I bet that's not what it is.
It is not pizza dough. This is cow stomach.
Oh.
Because all parts of the animal are edible, so you could have that for lunch too if you wanted it. So there's some cow stomach there. You can do something tasty with that. And what kinds of things do kids like to do in Peru? They like to play games on their cell phones or on computers. A lot of them like to do different clubs. Soccer is really popular. They love to play soccer.
Amen.
Yep. And we also asked them how we could pray for them this week. And they said that we could pray for them because they can't have services right now because of all of the coronavirus stuff, and that's kind of hard for their people. And they've been in lockdown since March 16th. Like, they really can't leave their houses, not as much as we can.
2 months yesterday.
That is crazy.
Wow.
So it's really discouraging for the people, and so they're asking that we would pray that the people would be encouraged spiritually and that they would have the food and the necessities that they need because they don't have it as accessible as we do. We can get to a lot of stuff that they can't. They've been able to help out some people though, and they've been able to pass out some food like some rice and beans and milk and oatmeal and some things to help out the people, which has been really great. But it's still really hard for them. So we asked what other kind of interesting things there are in Peru. And there's a lot of this. Traffic. A lot of traffic. People have to use buses or for transportation, and it can take people like an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to work because the city's so big and there's so much traffic around. That means that people are on the bus for like 3 or 4 hours every day, and a lot of times they won't get home till like 8 or 9 at night, which is a long time. Ugh, that looks like a mess. All that crazy traffic. So for them to get food right now, it's a lot tougher than it is for us. Here everybody's got masks and gloves on and everything. They still have to practice all the social distancing things, standing far apart, which is hard, especially for a people group who are used to be really close together all the time. So when you think about that and you think about buying all your food in an open market and how hard it would be to be spread out, it helps us be really thankful for what we have and know how to pray for them. And if you think about it, just keep praying that God will provide. Here's Becky and some of the people from her church packing up some rice to take to people. And I'm so thankful that God has provided for them to be able to share with other people, and we'll just need to keep praying that God continues to provide for them. So that's Pastor Jim and Becky Carlton in Lima, Peru.
Nice.
And they're our missionary for the week. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for watching each week and sharing with your friends and family. Just go ahead and give us comments below if you have anything you want to know more about or something you found really interesting, or if you found our hidden object. Hopefully you did. But just go ahead and stay tuned, and we'll listen to the next part of our story next time in a new country.
Or if you know anybody somewhere else in the world that you would maybe like us to show here.
Yeah.
I can't make any promises, but maybe.
Give it a try.
Yeah. So thanks again, like Alyssa said, and we would love if you would keep sharing this with others, and we will see you next week.
Yep. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.